Hello, everyone. Laura Bromain here from the Hamilton Hotel again. It is a Thursday, late afternoon, almost 5 o'clock. I'm here with my girl Jasmine, who some of you know I know because she is the woman who is behind DC Wedding Week. She's incredible. I know a lot of people know her in our industry, but today's happy hour is addressing something that I know Jasmine and I actually had talked about before the whole Black Lives Matter movement started. When I got this job at the Hamilton Hotel back in February, a conversation that Jasmine and I had started I specifically remember Jasmine saying, I really am counting on you, Laura, or something along the lines of like, I'm really excited for you to open up a new venue. And I hope to see a lot more diversity on those preferred vendors list. And that conversation stuck with me. And I remember being like, yep, never even heard of Get Plated. I've always heard of these other caterers. So Jasmine, I first want you to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background. And while you do that, and then we'll kind of get into the conversation.
Okay.
Let's cheers, because it is Thursday and it is happy hour.
Told me happy hour, so
exactly.
During this entire hour conversation.
I love it. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Laura. I'm excited. I love having these conversations, whether they're around inequality and racism or just connecting and talking industry news and biz. So thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. And yes, we did start our conversation around the importance of diversity, and particular in with some of your new space in DC, definitely before at the starts of, I will say, the most civil unrest we've experienced in a very long time, right? Because Black Lives Movement has been happening since Ferguson, but with the recent killings, right? George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, that has really kind of, brought up, and it's all kind of bubbles to the top. So yes, you and I started there. About me, so I've been in the wedding and event space for a long time. I would say over 15 years. I actually started as a volunteer doing freelance event management, mostly live events. So stage management, which is something that I love to do, making sure that, folks are in the right spaces. I worked full time and just kind of had this side hustle, which then became freelance event management, but also day of coordination. So I actually spent a solid maybe 12, 13 years doing just day of coordination. And that was really my beginning in the wedding space and wedding industry, which is a space that I really, really love. I've grown up in the wedding industry as a businesswoman. And then, as you mentioned, about 3 years ago in 2018, I went on to found DC Wedding Week. So I was kind of having this moment, Laura, where I was like, okay, weddings are cool. The business is doing well, but like, I need more. I want more.
Right.
I started thinking about kind of long-term and my impact and my legacy, and it really birthed the idea of DC Wedding Week, which is how you and I initially met, right? And connected, was at a DC Wedding Week event. And so creating this, I don't want to call it a platform. I've been using this word ecosystem. So creating this diverse ecosystem that just really is about bringing people together for a common cause, right? We're business people, we're creatives, we're in the wedding industry. And so I've just really been committed for the last few years to really building out and kind of shaping this ecosystem so that, one, there is diversity reflected, and that people feel like they belong, right? They feel like they're connected to a community of like-minded business people. And with DC Wedding Week, I've been able to, yes, put on a lot of events just for wedding professionals. We're definitely looking beyond how do we do this beyond just DC, but DC will always be the flagship for DC Wedding Week.
Right.
And then we've done workshops. And then most recently, as you know, we've done a series of conversations around racism and inequality in the wedding industry. So that is kind of how I got my start, where how I've kind of come up in the wedding and our industry space. I'm no longer doing weddings. My last wedding was November 2019. It was an awesome wedding. It was a phenomenal way to end that part of my life. But I still have DC Wedding Week. I'm still committed to helping shape and be a catalyst within the wedding industry, which is needed now more than ever. And then, as you know, in January, I launched a new company doing live events. So we all know kind of how that happened and what happened when, COVID happened. And so I, like many people in our industry, have had to try to figure out and pivot. That's been like kind of this buzzword, I feel like, for the years. We've all had to pivot. And so thankfully, I've been able to pivot. My pivot game has been strong. And so
it certainly has.
Doing virtual events since May. had a huge project this summer. I've done about 6 like large events. I have 2 more this month, and I have at least 1 happening through the end of the year. So I am grateful. I am aware of the chaos. I'm aware of the instability within our industry around me. So I am very grateful for the blessings that I have and being able to stay afloat. But I also recognize that everyone has not, you know, is not where I am. But I'm in a good space, and it's been a good ride. And again, I'm just still committed to the event space. So.
Well, and I think, didn't you just complete, what was it, a women's summit? A virtual?
Yeah, I did. I produced a 4-day virtual summit called the Wonder Women Tech. They do this annual event. It attracts 4,000 to 5,000 people. We had a stage in London. We had about 5 stages that were US based. They are a West Coast based nonprofit organization, and their focus is women in tech. And so, yeah, I was able to produce that. Insane, but fun. We had 4 days, 200 speakers, 6 stages.
What?
And it was a lot, but it was incredible. And you know what people don't talk about, Laura, when you're doing these events, even live events, although virtual is different because you actually can listen in more, is that like, even when I'm behind the scenes, like, you know, making sure everything's coming together and I'm promoting people to be, you know, on the stage, I'm able to listen and take in some gems for free.
Yeah,
right?
that's true, because you're sitting behind your computer.
Exactly.
Organizing, orchestrating it all, and you're actually able to.
Yeah. So I've been
around on site, like
during live events, we're usually kind of moving and scrambling. We don't really have time to sit, but because everything is virtual and it's done by usually like 3 or 4 laptops I have, or iPad and laptops, I'm able to actually kind of soak up some information. So it was an incredible summit. My client was awesome, and I'm looking forward to working with them again in a spring hybrid event. So
I love it. Well, of course, Jasmine, again, not knowing you that long, but I think through DC Wedding Week, I've seen you. You're obviously you're a self-made woman, and so I want this to be incredible, like an organic, like friend to friend.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a few questions, like what you've seen throughout, you know, our industry, the events industry, being a Black woman, and I am I call myself a basic blonde. The events industry, there's a lot of white girls, right? So I, you know, tell me if this is an ignorant question, you know, but I just want to kind of pick your brain and see how together, you know, we're both representing the events industry, how I can be more of help, opening up a new venue. So how I can start to really change the path for the events industry moving forward and maintaining that, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So my first question, just what have you seen throughout the years in the DC events industry, or in the events industry as a whole, that you would like to change specifically to be more inclusive?
Yeah. I would love to see the industry be more diverse. And I know we keep saying that, but let me just break that down. I think of diversity really in 2 folds, right? There's diversity and there's inclusion, right? So to me, diversity is like, okay, well, we work with maybe Black owned companies. I think of inclusion as like, you know, well, who's part of your staff? Who's part of making the decisions as to who's working in your space? So that's how I look at diversity and inclusion. I think I would like to see the industry just kind of embrace both, right? So there's a lot of companies that are like all white. You know, there's a lot of companies that are all Black. I think the diversity comes when you have teams that are made up of people from various backgrounds with various skill sets. I think that that's completely lacking. And so I know one thing we're going to talk a bit more about, and sorry if I'm jumping ahead, was just like, you know, when this kind of movement, you know, really kind of bubbled up, you know, we saw the Black tiles and everybody's, you know, kind of in their feelings, I could say in their bag, but like, I'm also thinking now, like, well, like who's made a difference on their own teams internally, right? Let's go beyond just hosting an event and saying, hey, Black people, you know, come and let's like connect. But I think it's more of like, is my staff diverse? You know, do I have different people from different cultural backgrounds? Do I have people that have different beliefs than me, right? And so diversity also in my book goes beyond just like kind of racial. There's other things that go with that. So to answer your question, I would love to see the wedding and events industry really become more of a melting pot, right? Where it's not so siloed, where you have white, Black, you know, Latina or Asian, but you just have a good, you know, mix of people that are working and doing business together, and then are operating businesses that also exude that.
I love that. I don't think that's been brought up enough, actually. Like just hiring. I mean, I know it's been brought up, but like, yeah, because you do see a lot of wedding companies. It's all white girl, you know,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that answer for sure. Really good.
That's one thing that when I had my day of wedding coordination business, I mean, I had a team that was Black, whites,
Right.
and so it was diverse, but it was diverse because that's just how it was. Like I hired good people and it wasn't really about your skin color. And my clients were diverse, right? So I think that there's also a
Yeah.
link that, you know, you diversify not only who you're working with, who you hire, but like your clientele will also, you know, also should be diverse as well, right? So that's just my kind of nuggets on diversity and inclusion.
Well, and it does do a bit of a mirroring effect, right? Your clients are going to mirror what your staff, you know,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
going to naturally integrate, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Great answer. Okay. My other question. Have you seen any changes since the Black Lives Matter peaceful protest this year, specifically in the events industry?
Um, I'm going to say no. I'm going to go hard and say no.
All right.
And the reason why is I see a lot of performative actions happening. And honestly, we won't really see it until we're all able to see each other, right? We're behind screens, we're virtual. So right now everything is done online. And so like I can put up, you know, pictures that say, you know, hey, Black Lives Matter, I support. But to me, the change becomes in the action, right? So it's when we come back to this more natural state and I'm doing an event, am I seeing, again, a team that represents different cultural backgrounds? Like to me, it's just too soon. I think the change has started. I think we're at the kind of the beginning of this cycle. And I think that's a beautiful thing to see, that people are talking, they are having conversations. There are people like yourself who, white people in particular, you know, who have a desire to do better and to help be part of this change. But honestly, I think until, you know, venues are open, we're kind of back in a more, you know, I keep saying normal, which I think this is our new normal space. I don't feel like I really see the change until I feel it in its action.
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. A lot of conversations have been happening. They should have happened a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, 100%. I agree. Okay. Next question.
Yep.
So, what are specific actions that vendors, venues, planners can take to keep us moving forward? You know, other than diversifying our preferred vendors list. What are other actions we can take?
Yeah, I think one, just being real with who you are and what your business is, and you know, taking inventory and stock of like how important is inclusivity and diversity, how is it important to your business, right? Because and some people may not care, and that's not okay, but it's okay if that's how you choose to run your business. But I think starting with self-awareness to figure out, wow, like have I been contributing to, you know, racism, whether it's been direct or indirect, right? Or microaggressive, right? You know, am I even aware that maybe there's some things that I've done that could have been offensive? And I think once you kind of start internally as an individual, and that goes to your business, then it should be about being intentional about getting out or just connecting with other people, right? So, and I again, I'm a Black woman. I'm very pro-Black, and so I also want to say this. It doesn't mean like reaching out to every Black planner that's, you know, listed on the Wedding Wire's website, right? I think it's more about just like being intentional, you know, like building relationships with, you know, because you saw someone's work. Maybe it's just doing, I don't know, searching a hashtag to see, you know, who has some cool aesthetics, and, you know, oh, it just happens to be, I don't know, a Black woman or an Asian woman. Let me just reach out and connect with them, right? I think it's looking beyond just the skin color and looking at the work. And being intentional about wanting to build and establish new relationships. I think that this goes far beyond just saying that, hey, like Black Lives Matter, we support, here's my Black tile. So I think just the relationship part, I think that's huge. So I would say start with yourself, do some gut check-in, self-awareness, look at your business, you know, is it diverse? Is it inclusive? What kind of couples are we working with? Who haven't we worked with that we want to work with? And think about, why haven't we been working with them? You know, is my site, do I have copyright on my site that's inclusive? Does it, you know, bring in a different type of audience? Do I want to bring in different topics? I think just doing, kind of dissecting and really doing some soul searching, and then you begin to, you know, becomes practice, right? And you take action. And I think those are things beyond just just updating the preferred list, which the whole preferred list is a whole situation, because that is problematic for so many reasons. But to your point, beyond that, I think it's just about, you know, wanting to do different, do better, wanting to be intentional, and then just taking a reach out, you know, send an email, I don't know, host an event, and just, you know, invite people, you know, not just your same old friends, but, you know, extend it out to the wedding community. I think those are, you know, small things that are also helpful, and they're just good ways to kind of get started as well.
It all starts with self-awareness, right?
Yeah, it does.
Self-awareness.
Hey, we're humans first. We're humans before we are business people.
Yeah. I watched a documentary back in December, and it was it's called Hello Privilege. It's me, Chelsea Handler did a documentary on white privilege, and I went to coffee with one of my friends, and I guess she told me, she was like, Laura, you became woke. Because I started looking around and like noticed, and like, how did it take me so long to like realize, like, it just, anyway. So I really like that you brought up that point of like really just taking a look at your own staff, taking a look at your company, and just seeing like who's at the top, who's at the bottom. Like, let's start questioning and becoming curious and educating ourselves. Like, it's not on you for me to, you know, to find, it is on the individual. So I like that you mentioned that. Okay, so another question. Okay, could you please share any personal experiences that might hit home with our audience, if you feel comfortable, that impacted you directly solely because of the color of your skin?
Yeah, so I have, at least on 3 occasions, as the owner of a company in the DC area, I have done weddings where I've had both guests and other wedding vendors. I will be standing next to someone, a woman that's working for me who may be white. I will have them, I've had guests and vendors approach them as if they're the owner of the company when I was standing there. And I've had it happen at least 3 times.
Wow.
Guest and or, and it's like, oh, and I'm like, actually, no, she's not. I am. So again, I think that's more, it's definitely an example of a kind of a microaggressive and aggression. And always, like, I would think, well, why would you assume that, like, the Black woman standing here is not the owner of the company, but the younger white woman is, right? So I think that's definitely, that's been an experience. And it, you know, it hurts. The first time it's kind of like, well, damn, like, should I have had a suit? Like, you know, what would make someone assume that I was not? And I don't know, maybe it's just my own, you know, sensitivity, but I definitely, I've only experienced it with white vendors and white guests, which is so interesting to me. So, I mean, that's definitely been, I've definitely experienced racism in that regards. I feel like I've been to a lot of events in DC where, you know, there may not be a lot of Black people, where, like, you know, white women have, like, maybe not acknowledged my presence or acknowledged me. Like, those things come across as very racist, like, point blank, period. Like, we're all industry people. I walk into the room as a Black woman, and like, you know, 4 white women walk past me and don't acknowledge or speak. That is like, that's some shit, you know, just
that's painful.
So, and I think that it happens a lot, to be very honest with you, in this area. Or I've had people say, oh, you're the owner, or, oh, you're the founder of DC Wedding Week. I am. Like, why would I not be, you know? So those are things that, like, really irritate me. And those are just a little snippet of, you know, what I've experienced. But yeah, so.
I know you're not the only one, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a Black woman, I've experienced it, again, directly, indirectly, not so aggressively, but, you know, it happens. And fortunately, I'm a very strong woman. I'm also a strong Black woman. So, you know, I'm able to handle myself in those situations, but it doesn't mean it doesn't sting or doesn't hurt, you know?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is, again, having been in the industry, the events industry, for a long, long time. I was an event planner at one point, and for nonprofits and associations. And yeah, looking back, it was mostly white women at my company, like on the events team. And why? Like, but it's something that we are hopefully waking up to and really going to take action. So in paving a new path for the events industry as a whole.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Again, I think this is important for people to hear, for people to be like, because who knows, like someone could be listening. You're like, oh, I just completely might have walked past Jasmine at an event. Like,
and don't, you know, I don't want to make it seem like just because you don't speak, you're like racist, but I think there's an energy, there's an aura, like you don't look someone dead in their eye and walk past and not, I mean, we're at an industry networking event, like, you know what I mean? So I want to be very clear, and like, we all have bad days, like shit happens, I get that, but like stay home, you know, don't come to a networking event. And so we're all in the space together. Cause I know
exactly.
I with everybody, like I assess, I work the room, I want to know like who everyone is, right? That's the purpose of going to a networking event. So let me just be very clear that it's not just like, oh my God, you didn't speak to her, she feels a certain way because you're racist. Like, no, like I'm talking about like, it's an energy, it's a vibe, it's a like, you know, snootiness. It's white privilege, and I have experienced it and seen it and felt it. So
it is a thing. I'm going to keep referring to that documentary because that really just hit home with me. And for me personally, you know, it's about taking action, I think, with this whole Black Lives Matter movement. And it's been hundreds of years, right? Like, and it takes, I guess, just an uncomfortable owning up as a privileged person, right? Didn't grow up rich or whatever, but I grew up middle class, but I still grew up white. And that means I still had a head start, right? And I think we as white people in general just need to there's enough to go around, like in this whole world, you know? And so it's having, you know, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, which is capital of the South, let's be honest. And a lot of my friends from home, it's starting to have those conversations with my own white friends in Richmond. And there's a lot of denial when I start to bring up, don't you think? And it's a challenge for myself, like just to try, because I'm non-confrontational and I'm just like, okay, like, but guys, like you have to understand, like and then there's all these videos that I've been watching too that I'm just like, ugh.
Well, I mean, the good thing, Laura, is it sounds like you're doing the work, right? You're doing the work. And so for you, like, you know, you're changing, right? You're doing the work. I'm going to have to check out this Netflix. I've seen that. I'm like, well, it isn't, I mean, you know, why would I need to watch it? But why not? So I'm going to add it to my Netflix watch list, but it's good to hear that. I mean, I definitely feel like, I mean, you and I, again, we were having these conversations before, like, you know, all the craziness started, all the craziness has been ongoing, but,
of course,
but I love that, like to me, you're very genuine. I think that you have a strong desire and passion to be part of the change. So like, you know, don't belittle your efforts. Like this is big. And I think this is part of that change. And I think it's starting to happen. So.
Well, and again, I keep action. It starts with first the conversations, right? These are hard conversations, but actions. And I will say, after I watched that documentary, you know, Chelsea got a lot of flack for it because it still came off as very, you know, white privilege after she came out with that documentary. But I will say, on her Instagram, she had action items that like what you can do in your local community, join your local surge, like standing up for racial justice communities in DC and this. And so like, I appreciate that there are still some action items that you can take instead of just posting stuff on Instagram, where, you know.
I'll share this with you. I was having lunch with a friend of mine that's also in the industry, and she's phenomenal. And we had lunch last week, and one thing that I want to offer to your audience and to you that she mentioned that she's doing is like beyond just kind of expanding her network. And she's a woman of color. Let me put that out. She's not Black, but she's a woman of color. She has also been saying, Jasmine, people are forgetting about being an advocate for your own team. And so she, as an example, was saying she has a team of like 35 makeup artists. She's an example of saying she has white clients who they request a service and then they are assigned, you know, makeup artists. Well, your makeup artist may be Black, and how she's had like white clients be like, well, hey, I don't want to work with Jasmine. Like, do you have anyone else? Without saying because she's Black. And it's like, she's a phenomenal makeup artist. Why wouldn't you want to work with her? And so she was saying one thing that she's doing more of and being more aware of is like being an advocate for her makeup artist. So instead of saying, oh, we'll replace you with Chelsea,
Right,
no,
right,
like
right.
Jasmine is good. If you don't want to work with her, I'm sorry, you have to find someone else. So I think that's another piece as well, was just kind of being an advocate as well for your team and for the industry, right? So I just wanted to offer that thought. I thought that was real. I was like, you know what? I didn't think about that. Sometimes we have to go against even our clients, right? And just about standing up and doing the right thing because it's the right thing. So to your last point, sometimes it's about like calling shit out, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And saying, hey, this is not right.
I love that you just said that, because the next question, what should we be doing, or what should we be educating clients on to be more inclusive of hiring Black-owned businesses?
Yeah, so I would say, I think we need to get away from like, I think it's more of like when you have a client, for you in particular, like venue, right? Or, venue, food and beverage. I think it's more understanding the client's needs and matching them with vendors that fit their needs. And
Right.
that need may be met by a Black vendor. It may be met by an Indian vendor. It
Right.
may be met by a South Asian vendor. So I think it's more of like getting past, and I'm just thinking about the conversation I had a few months ago with a group of guys,
Mm-hmm.
and Andre was on there. And one thing he talked about was like, people are just, go for the talent. There's so much creativity out here. You get past just like,
Exactly.
this is who we always work with. Who you always work with may not even be the best. Like, let's be honest. There's a lot of like, people that are getting the business from the same group of, venues and caterers that are not necessarily offering the best service or the best
Right.
product, best quality. So I would say, beyond these damn lists that y'all have, and I understand why they exist, and making sure they're diverse, spend time to get to know the client and their needs, and then you assess and you recommend based on what you think will work with the client, not just style aesthetically, but like personality. You may need a much more aggressive planner, or you may need a more low-key planner, and it just may happen to be a Black woman, or maybe it's not, and I think that's okay. So I think like, let's get away from like this favoritism, and this is comfortable for us, so we're just going to refer to this person, we love this person. Just go beyond that and really think about quality of service and quality of product. And I think that's what we do. Hey, Laura, I know you're getting married. You mentioned you wanted to have, some flavorful food, get plated. Oh my God, that's one thing that they are known for. They are the ones that can provide this kind of unique cuisine. I think it's just understanding more about your vendors and being able to match what they can do and deliver to your clients' needs.
Well, exactly. And it's really getting to know your client, understanding their personality, and just knowing your vendor, and knowing not just the same for caterers or the same for florists. It's like really expanding your network, getting to know their personality, so that if you get this client and they are specific about this and that, you're like, oh, well then forget the preferred vendors list. I think you're going to be the perfect match for this company.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely, and with opening up the Skylar, we are definitely obviously kind of reinventing the whole flexibility, being a very flexible venue. So yeah, we have a preferred list.
Yeah.
But if you have if you have another idea of what you want your event to be, bring them in too. Like, we're not going to just lock you down to those 4, our catering company. And one thing I did want to mention, actually, just as it just came to me, is we have a women's suffrage suite, but this is an example of how I think I'm hopefully educating our clients. So I'm doing these site tours at the hotel, right? And I'm taking them up to the suffrage suite. And so women won the right to vote in 1920, but I have very much made it very vocal when I take my clients or people who are looking to book, maybe the suffrage suite, our specialty suite. But I specify, I'm like, but let's remember, Black women didn't win the right to vote until 1964, 1965.
That's right.
And people just forget. They just forget. Yes, the suffrage movement, 1920, 100 years ago. But that was white women that won the right to vote. So guess what? Like, let's just keep history is important to keep talking about. And, I know I'm trying to get their sale. I want them to buy the suite. But like, also, we have a suite that is honoring these trailblazing women that did so much, right, for us.
Yeah.
However, let's keep harping on the fact that things did come later for Black people.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, so, that's just, I was just thinking of like, oh, like that's an example.
So wait, Lord, so did you all, and I can't wait to come down and see it, but so did you all incorporate like any other Black women incorporated in the suffrage suite?
There's Shirley Chisholm. And so there's, And I will definitely have to take you through the tour because I will say they did a wonderful job. So Samantha Berry was the curator from
Okay.
Glamour magazine. She's editor-in-chief of Glamour magazine. And when we did, this was like the week before COVID, we had a VIP reception. Valerie Jarrett was supposed to fly down and speak about the whole suite, but it was like the week before COVID. So Valerie had to cancel her flight. It was very unfortunate. But it is a room full of diverse women. There's Condoleezza Rice, the very first turn you see, there's a picture of her, Hillary Clinton, there's RBG obviously in the Four Supreme. So I'm very proud to say that the Hamilton Hotel did a very good job of diversifying that room.
Oh, good. Well, I can't wait to see it. I'm going to come down soon, so.
Yes. Okay, so I have one more question.
Yeah.
As friend to friend, what can I personally be doing more of with leading the charge while opening up a new venue in DC? Leading the charge as in, let's shake things up, right? Let's make it more diverse in our industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about some good things. I mean, I think the first, I always start with self-awareness, is I think it's an individual personal choice to want to be, you know, thinking outside the box and be more diverse and inclusive. So I think that you've done that. So, you know, well, I'm not gonna take my hat off because my hair's not done, but hat off to you for being self-aware and I think you've done a great job at just kind of, you know, reaching out and again, being very intentional about wanting to get connected to maybe vendors you have never heard of or never worked with, just to kind of start building a relationship, because everything should be relationship based, I believe. I think, you know, I'm not sure where we are with this preferred vendors list. I haven't seen your list in a while, but I think, and also I recognize that sometimes with these venues like yourself, you know, it's not always the venue manager. Sometimes it's up above, it's the senior leadership team. So my challenge to you would be to like be banging on their doors saying, when are we making changes? Like, this is the thing that we have to think about in our industry is like, not only should we be making changes as industry professionals, but like, people on the outside, our clients, they're making changes. So if you have a couple that comes to you and your list is all white vendors, they're going to be like, oh, y'all aren't with it. Y'all aren't with it. You know what I mean? It turns them off. So I think from a business perspective, like businesses have to understand and realize that the world, yes, we are shifting and there is a change happening. And to be part of that, you got to make sure that you're breaking stuff up as well. So I think for you, it's just kind of banging on that door saying, you know, why do I ask my team, my full-time job, I tell them all the time, when people tell you something you can't do something, ask them why. That's it, because a lot of times rules and policy and things are in place just because of history, because no one's ever asked why, right? So it's like, you know, hey, I have a friend of mine that told me that she requested to be on a vendors list at another venue, and they were like, oh, you have to wait till January. Why?
Why can't we change it now?
Why does it have to be January?
Right.
Is it because like you pay to play? Just say that, right? And be upfront. Is it because, you know, management just says they just feel comfortable with who they have? And if that's the case, again, I think it's for us, the change makers, to like rough shit up and say, look, we got to do something different. Like, we're in the heart of DC, we're in K Street. Like DC is, you know, it's not as black as it used to be, but it's still very diverse. There are well-off people of all colors in this city. People are getting hip. We get back to the real world, and people are going to want to know what venues have embraced this change. You know, where can I go and like have a plethora of vendors to choose from that provide a good service, good quality, but that also, you know, can get my style, you know, whether that's me, my style as a Black woman from a, you know, how I like my food cooked, or maybe it's a South Asian bride that wants to make sure, you know, the florist can like develop this like beast ass mandap, you know? So I think it's just about just kind of, and to me, again, that's that inclusivity piece that I think is missing. We keep saying diversity and that's there, but like, inclusiveness is like, who's gonna feel who's able to help make the impact, you know?
Right. So I went to Melva, LaJoy, and Bright Occasions, I think, with Margot. They invited me to an event called Beyond the Blackout just a couple weeks ago at Anderson House. It was amazing. The whole panel, all Black-owned businesses. The next day I called my big boss and I was like, we are opening up a progressive venue in DC. Like, we have got to switch things up a little here. Like,
good for you.
He visit and he completely on board. Like, it was just like no brainer. So lucky, like it is.
I wonder if it's something that I need to look into. Like, I'm like, should I be like, maybe I should like, you know, be like that person that's going and having these conversations with these big bosses and letting them know, like,
Yeah, having the courage to go ask why. Like,
yeah, like why?
Sometimes it really does. It's as simple as just having the courage to just why has it been done this way? That goes for a lot of businesses, and
Yeah.
you know. But I appreciate this conversation. I think that again, keep continuing these conversations, right? Because it was like right after George Floyd, everybody was like, oh, we got to have uncomfortable conversations, and it was like, you know, one after another. But I think down the road, we do need to keep up the momentum, and so I'm very glad that we're having this conversation. We're still having this conversation and continuing coming up with action items, like, and for not just the events industry, right? This is a movement. So thank you, Jasmine. You're incredible. I am excited about DC Wedding Week.
Thank you. Yeah, we're just like, we're making a huge announcement on Monday, so I'm super excited. I've taken time. So in the midst of like working and managing my own life, my kid has gone to college, and I've just kind of been able to kind of recalibrate. And so I'm excited. We're making a huge announcement on Monday, so I can't wait to see about that. And then we are having an event next Thursday for venues only. You were on the invite list. It went out like late yesterday.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to keeping conversations going. And one thing about me, and I think you know this, Laura, and I think people that know me know that, like, when I have these kind of gatherings of people and discussions, it's always done in a very graceful way. It's never meant to like bash. We don't like throw out names and like, but for me, I'm really committed to like, how do we make a change? Like, let's talk about this. Let's just have this dialogue and discussion. And then let's kind of, you know, figure out some tangible takeaways and learnings. And let's, you know, be part of this change. So I'm excited to be being able to bring together venues, because like you mentioned, and we talked about this, the preferred vendors list thing, lady, I won't say what I want to say. It's problematic, and I get it. But I just want to, it's just, you know, and I totally in my mind, I kind of understand, but I think just having the conversations around like, let's talk about this, right? Like, what needs to happen? Do you need me to write a letter to like, you know, an executive to say, hey, this is why you guys should absolutely make this change? Like, let's come together collectively and just have a discussion to figure out what we can do for those that really do want to see a change to something different. So I'm excited about that. And then, of course, we are bringing DC Wedding Week back in April. It's always in April. And so not really sure what it's going to look like. I'm thinking maybe hybrid. Maybe we'll do some in person and some online, just because I don't think that we're going to be like out here with, you know, I just don't know when we're going to be back outside.
Nobody
really.
No, it's
so,
like 2021, but like we just don't. It's every day is a different.
Yeah,
every day is different.
It is absolutely. So we'll see.
All right, Jasmine. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate this conversation, and I am very much looking forward to some big changes happening in the world, right? Like, hope for people to keep asking why, and you know, questioning why things have been done a certain way. And it's good to be friends and to have conversations. Keep having these conversations and then taking action. So
again, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy, we always have good conversations when we're together. So I appreciate this. And yes, please keep the conversations going. Anything I can do to support and help, you know, you have my phone number, send me a quick text and let me know. But no, this was great. I can't wait to go back and listen to it.
I know.
But no, you keep doing what you're doing. And again, however I can help and support you, please let me know.
You do the same. All right. Cheers.
Thank you. Let me get my wine.
Here's to inclusion. Let's just say inclusion.
Inclusion. Not my thing is like inclusion. Yes.
All right. Happy Thursday, and thank you for tuning in to the Hamilton Hotel Happy Hour today, y'all. Bye.